Hello to our wonderful alumni. I very much look forward to meeting so many of you at our upcoming dinners and other opportunities. I'm very excited to share this set of alumni shiurim on something which is really at the core of our experience. We'll deal with Middot for parenting. Middot are characteristics, are the basis of our life in Judaism, and how important is it to focus on those Middot most needed for correct parenting. We read a lot about the importance of chinuch habanim. The famed Nesiva Shalom, the Rabbi of Slonim, said it is the mitzvah of our generation. And we get a lot of practical tips. This is all great, but I believe lacking if we don't go deeper into what characteristics we need to be the best parents we can be. It's not just what we have to do, but who we have to be to parent correctly. So these talks will be focusing on who we have to be more than what we have to do. I personally never heard of focusing chinuch habanim shiurim in this way, so I'm thrilled about the chance to do something novel and perhaps open a petach, open a way for others to approach their own parenting and teach others from this unique angle. I hope these shiurim will be important for those who are already parents and for those not yet parents, as it is very helpful to prepare on the day before for the day after. And I think it will also be beneficial for the grandparents amongst us. I'm personally a proud member of that club, albeit in a different way. Today, we're going to focus on the midah of seder, being orderly. That's a surprise. Whoever said that's important for parenting? We will, one, encapsulate the difference of being orderly or not. Two, define Seder. Three, apply to parenting. And four, give a few practical tips towards being more orderly in our lives. Seder means being orderly and efficient. We're going to encapsulate the difference between being orderly or not in this. Rav Elia Henkin, the famed posek in America, pre-Rav Moshe Feinstein, was told about the Rav of Jerusalem, the Rav of Yerushalayim, Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, who was known as a phenomenal Gaon. That Rav Elia Henkin didn't have to be told. But it was related to Rav Elia Henkin that Rav Tzvi Pesach was incredibly mesudar, incredibly orderly. In Hebrew, the words were mesudar lahafli, wondrously orderly. What was Rav Elia's response? And here's where we want to focus. He said, of course he was mesudar lahafli. Of course he was tremendously orderly. Otherwise, there would have been no way he would have been as big a Gaon as he was. Wow. You can get a lot done without being orderly, but it doesn't compare to what can be done if one is orderly and efficient. Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank always would have been a tremendous Talmud Chacham, but he wouldn't have been the Rav of Yerushalayim. He wouldn't have been the Rav of all Kol HaTorah Kula. Rav Chaim Kanievsky has his starim, his times, and is set on them and a mesudar about them. And that's how he gets done as much as he gets done. An orderly businessman can have 5 businesses at the time when someone else could only have 2 or 3. This is what should push us towards this important midah. We all have a lot to do in our lives. We're all busy. How can you get all that done? This is our challenge, not to be satisfied with less, rather to realize we need to accomplish a lot and we need to be orderly to do it. What is Seder? To know what is yours, physical and other. To know where all that is and to arrange it correctly. To know and have prioritized what you want to do, what the order you want to do it in, and finally to do it. Let's think parenting. We need to be orderly on 4 levels. 1, our thinking and planning. 2, our execution of the parenting plans we come up with. 3, we need to be organized at what we take on ourselves in our life outside of parenting, so we have enough time and space to parent correctly. And 4, finally, the more orderly we are in all things, the more we embody the midah in everything we do, the more we will readily apply it in our parenting. Let's go one by one over that list. Thinking and planning. Husbands and wives constantly speak about their children. Now let's think. How many practical, implemented conclusions come out of these talks? You're speaking about the children anyway. Try to be orderly about it. Meaning, from all the ideas getting thrown around, try to focus the conversation in two ways. One, what's the real point here? What change can be made? What negative behavior can we help our child avoid? What positive behavior or idea can we introduce her to? Two, now we know the idea, but how can we practically improve things? I added the word practically, as I see that as an absolutely related term to Seder. Can we see that? Without being practical, it's impossible to be orderly. Lack of practicality pushes one to spend time and resources in foolish and unorganized ways. Okay, now you have a clear plan, but now you need Seder again, you need orderliness again in order to execute. We find the time and kochot to put our parenting ideas into effect. You need to be mesudar. When will you do this? And can you be orderly and put aside other things to focus on what you said you would do? Let's walk through an example of everything we've spoken about. You read in a parenting book that each parent should spend 10 minutes a day with each child. Okay, let's say you have 4 children. You mentioned this idea to your hubby, and you're both excited about this great notion. Being practical, and Musudar says, wait, not so fast. Let's first be organized in our thinking and planning. Is this something we can do? That's 40 minutes a day for each parent. But it isn't just 40 minutes, it's starting and stopping something 8 times. 4 starts and 4 stops for each parent. Now maybe the father will say, oh, I have less of a workload now. I can do this 5 times a week, but not every day. Mom says, every day is totally unrealistic for me, but I can do this twice a week. Now, before committing to this, ask yourself, is this really a priority for our parenting? You think about that, and the conclusion is yes. Now you have a realistic plan, an organized plan. If you hadn't been organized and just randomly went for it, most probably you would end up with nothing. As we know the Talmudic adage, tafasta meruba lo tafasta. Loosely, when you try to grab too much, you end up with nothing. Besides maybe being frustrated with your spouse for not doing their part. Now, you have to be organized in your execution. Dad says, I will spend 4 times with all 4, I will spend time with all 4 children after dinner. One after the other, Sunday through Thursday. Mom says Tuesday evening and Shabbos afternoon works for me. Being organized in execution means when the rubber hits the pavement to put aside other things and focus on the task at hand. It isn't time for emails, WhatsApps, and phone calls now. You can get to that later. Another point, organization also means sometimes, even if you could speak more than the 10 minutes allotted with that child, you stop at the 10-minute mark to get to your other tasks. Third point, as mentioned earlier, you have to be organized about what you take on yourselves in your lives outside of parenting in order to execute properly in your parenting. Chacham ro'es enolad. A wise man sees the future, sees what the future will bear. If you say yes to every request, if you always stay late in the office, if you go to every simcha and bake a cake for every kiddush, it will come at the expense of your parenting. What do we say yes to? That's part of being organized in your prioritizing. Finally, as mentioned before, the more we are orderly in all things, the more we embody the Midah in everything we do, the more we will already apply it in our parenting. To that extent, let's finish with 3 practical eitzot to being more organized. 1, what we call 4-quadrant box thinking. I'm sure this is not new to many of you. Using the basic terms urgent and important, we have 4 boxes. There are things which are both urgent and important. There are things which are urgent but not important. There are things which are not important and not urgent. And there are things which are important but not urgent. Now let's think. On the one hand, we have things which are urgent, they got to get done, and they're important. On the other hand, we have things which are not important and not urgent. And in the middle, we have important, but not urgent, and urgent, but not important. Obviously, we don't want to be in not urgent, not important. Of course, we need to spend a lot of time in urgent and important. The real challenge is not to spend too much time in urgent, but not important, at the expense of important, but not urgent. This is a super important distinction, specifically in the parenting context. Can we see that spending time with children is rarely urgent, but of course, it is vitally important. On the other hand, many emails, WhatsApps, and the like present themselves as urgent, but they're really not that important. So we have to train ourselves to zone into important and not urgent over urgent and not important, to give our children the time they deserve. That's the first idea, first practical tip. Practical tip number 2, touch things only once. The more things that build up, the more difficult it is to be organized, because you have that many more things to do and that many more things to get to. So perforce, it's harder to get to everything. Many things don't need more than one look and can be dealt with and decided on the spot, but we procrastinate, a word we'll revisit in our next session. Listen to this. I have a friend with over 90,000 items in his inbox. Another with over 30,000. No exaggeration. How can you get anything done like that? 3, our final eitzah, in terms of getting to organization, is throw things out. If it is physical things you don't need, and all the more so if it's spiritual things you don't need, like bad habits, get rid of them. Maybe. Don't get rid of good stuff, but there are many things we could all do so much better without. I wish everyone, including myself, great atzlacha in being more mesudar in all our important roles, and especially our most important role as parents.